Here we go. Hey, we're a little bit late, but better late than never. Welcome everybody to another episode of Coffee on Purpose. Apologies for our late arrival. There was some digital snafu going on. Anything that can't go wrong will go wrong, especially when people are playing with Microsoft Edge. I'm just saying. But
Technical difficulties.
That's right. But we are here now. My name is Scott Perry. I am Chief Difference Maker at Creative on Purpose. This is an episode of Coffee on Purpose where I get together and have a caffeinated conversation with a difference maker that inspires me. And we are here to just unpack a word or an idea as it might apply broadly to difference making. I am delighted to have my friend Sophy Yohannon here with me today. And we're here to talk about mentorship. So, Sophie, before we dive in, just give our viewers a sense of who you are, what you're up to these days, and where people can go to learn more about you and the difference you're making.
Thank you. So my full name is Mary Sophy Yohannon. I go by my middle name, which is Sophie. So thank you for that. I think that's one thing. I'll start off. Identity is really important. Knowing people's names and their backgrounds and being genuinely curious about what they do, what they're passionate about, what makes them tick is very important to me. And I think, for me, the first step towards a successful mentorship is relationships, relationship building. And it's not a one story building, right? There are multiple floors and it's an ongoing process. So I am currently a clinical evaluation scientist at a large medical device company called Boston Scientific. I have been in the clinical research space for over 18 years, and before that, in different roles and different therapeutic areas, cardiology and oncology and gynecology, neurology, psychiatry, and integrative medicine before that. So it took me a while to find my niche, I think, and I think I'm here. So why is mentorship important to me? I've had so many mentors in my career along the way. I have one right now, and I'm sure I'll always have one. So I think it's really important to pass on what we learn. I think in past generations, that has been a natural thing where from one generation to the next, wisdom and knowledge is passed on. And from a senior to a junior, or to someone more experienced to less experienced, these things are naturally passed on. But I found recently that it's not so natural anymore. It's become awkward, and we've become disconnected. And it becomes we have to go searching for a mentor, and we have to really scratch and claw to find someone who's willing to spend some time with us. And I think as I get older, I start thinking about this, that, if we don't pass on our knowledge as we're learning, as we're becoming an expert in something, at the end of this life, what have we done, right? It's finite, so if we don't pass on our knowledge, where's the value in everything that we've done? Everything is limited. So I think it's really important to pass on that knowledge, to pay it forward, and give freely. And I think our time is probably one of the most valuable commodities. So that's something I believe in very passionately. And that's why I host a mentorship discussion forum within an audio-only social media app called Clubhouse. I started that this year, and it's very important to me.
Yeah, I love it. I love this topic because it's I think often about like, what's the difference between mentorship, coaching, teaching, and I also think that in any of those kind of roles, which sometimes are conflated and confused with each other, and I think
Oh, yeah.
they are different,
Mhm.
but in any of those roles, there's kind of the formal variety and then the
Yes.
informal variety.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious, like, I mean, I'm happy to kick off, but like when you think about like how is mentorship different than a coaching relationship or a teaching relationship? How do you see the difference?
For me personally, I see mentorship as more of a two-way street, whereas instruction or coaching it could be two-way, but very often it's one way. I'm also an instructor for a company called Clinical Research Fast Track. I'm a clinical research instructor and coach there. So that's a very different dynamic where I have a bunch of students and I am lending my experience, my background knowledge of what I've been through in research to the curriculum they're learning as they're moving forward. So it's more of a one-way relationship. And sure, I get something out of that relationship. I can see them grow. I see them learn. I see them advancing. That's feeding me. Um, but there isn't a fully two-way learning pathway that way. Whereas with mentoring, you can be the mentor or the mentee, and you can learn from each other. It doesn't have to be a one-way, an instructor teaching someone. You
Mhm.
can be trading skills. You can be trading talents. You can be filling each other's holes. And that's what I find so fascinating and valuable about mentorship. Sometimes I meet someone much younger than me who is looking for a mentor. And most of the time during my interactions with this person, I end up learning a lot more than I planned, a lot more than the mentee thinks I
Mhm.
might learn. Because new people, especially a lot of young people entering the workforce now, come in with a very different perspective than I did, when I started, a fresh perspective. And they have technology is kind of second nature to them. They wouldn't have had this difficulty that I had getting onto the platform. So I learn a lot just from that perspective. I try to stay open and willing to receive, and that's why I think mentorship is such a rich relationship, a rich process, if
Yeah.
you stay open.
Yeah, I think that at their best, all three relationships borrow from each other. Like
Mhm.
I think I've written about, I see that instruction is when someone has access to information or insight and they are dripping it out to you, through some
Yes.
sort of curriculum.
Yes.
And in the internet age, where all the information is kind of available, instruction is not as valuable as it used to be, which is maybe why so many people are deciding that they're kind of done with formal education,
Yep.
especially advanced education. Teaching, um, like coaching and like the way that you're describing mentorship, at its best, bakes in this element of accompaniment, of being doing the work with each other, with and for each other, and that there's
Yes.
this component of learning by doing.
Yes.
Just early last week, as I was thinking about this subject and this conversation with you, I had an interesting exchange in LinkedIn through private message where someone, roughly my age, who was really resonating with some of the things that I was sharing on LinkedIn said, "Hey, I would love for you to be my mentor." And I asked, like, what does that mean? And it turned out that um, what he really wanted was free coaching as opposed to, and I think that sometimes mentoring gets a bad rap because um we because people approach it that way, like I can't afford coaching or I can't I don't have access to teaching, so I will get a trusted advisor, an elder or what have you,
Mhm.
mentor me. And I don't think that that's a very healthy way to make progress. Like
No.
if you're going to if you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be, you have to have stakes. You have to have
Yes.
something invested in the relationship.
Yes, exactly. And I've talked about this in my room, the discussion room, mentorship discussion room, is that it has to be a two-way street when it's mentorship. The mentor has to get something out of it as well as the mentee. It's not instruction. It's not the same as, I mean, there are some overlaps, like you said, of course, there's some overlapping. There is some imparting of knowledge that comes from the mentor to the mentee, sure, but it's more experiential, right? It's more situational. It's not textbook, it's not instructional, it's not a one-way street. So the mentee has to do the work. And we talked about this in the discussion room. The mentee has to do the work. And what's coming from the mentor is more like guidance, a pathway, a steering, a little bit of steering, So if you have the background, if you as a mentee have the background to do what you need to do, achieve your goals, and you have the time to invest, and you have the basic skills, but you need some direction, you need some steering along the way. That's what a mentor is for. Someone to kind of guide you along the way, someone to check in with maybe once a month or once a week or whatever arrangement you come up with, um, to see, does that make sense? Is your pathway making sense? How does it align with my pathway? A lot of times people choose mentors who have traveled that path before, you
Mm.
know so it doesn't mean both paths have to be exactly the same, but if you are veering far away from the path, your mentor will be able to tell you that. So that's the value of a mentor. It's definitely not instructional.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of mentees really forget that this is not instruction. And, they have to value the mentor's time and expertise, especially, if this is not a business, we are just offering our expertise or giving our experience or advice to someone who is coming up in the same path, and we're trying to share our experience. The mentor's time should really be valued and considered when questions are posed or when meetings are scheduled. It has to be, uh, I think the structure, the schedule, and the kind of homework should be done by the mentee.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and another thing that bubbles up for me in thinking about, the best versions of this that I've experienced, whether it's being a mentor, or being mentored, being coached, or coaching, being a teacher, or being taught,
mhm,
is that it has mm, there's recognition of where someone is, recognition of where they want to be, and then unpacking together what's really in the way and holding space and actually creating like the empathetic, generous tension that helps the person seeking guidance to
yes.
arrive at their own truth. So it's not very helpful. So often I see coaching, mentoring, and teaching done poorly, which is, you've got a problem, I'm going to give you the solution.
No,
I'm
yeah,
going to
that's
fix you. This is, you don't know where you're going, I'm going to give you a map. And I think at its best, coaching, teaching, and mentoring is, I see, hear, and understand where you are and where you want to be. Let's build a compass and teach you how to use it so that you can find your own way,
yes.
through, the obstacle that you probably put in your own way. You
Yes.
haven't seen it that way.
Sometimes it's just reflection, right? A lot of times, I would say at least 50% of the time, a mentor is just a mirror,
Hmm.
reflecting back the goals, the obstacles, the talents, the skills, everything that the mentee has already in his or her tool bucket, and how to put those tools and those puzzle pieces together and make sure that we are on time, we're on track. It's kind of like, for anyone who has joined Weight Watchers, we count calories and all those things, measure the food. It's not anything that we don't know. There isn't, some new incredible knowledge that's being imparted. It's just holding you accountable and giving you a direction, a schedule, and a pathway, just something to follow. So you're not on your own trying to get through the forest, right?
Yeah. Well, so there's a term. So back in 2019, right before the pandemic, hit here in the United States, my wife and I participated in Chip Conley's Modern Elder Academy. And one of the things that they talk about there is the concept of mentorship. And so and I don't think it's necessarily Chip's terminology, but he certainly has been an exponent of it. It's this idea of combining mentor-mentee relationships with the idea of being an intern, someone that is, again, learning by doing. And
Yeah.
I really love that kind of framing because it clarifies that that idea of accompaniment and doing. And that work is going to be done, not just wisdom imparted, not just advice being imparted, but that you're solving an interesting problem together.
Yes.
And it requires that you both put forth some time, attention, and effort into doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Most internships, even in the old-fashioned or original traditional definition of the term, when you are an intern, usually you don't know everything there is to know to do that job, right? So you're learning along the way. How are you learning? Somebody has to mentor you, right? Somebody with more experience, more knowledge, more seniority has to guide you along the way. And then you do it. And as you do it, you learn more and you get more proficient and more confident. And so there's sometimes mentoring happening without people knowing about it, right? So I like the idea of a mentee taking the initiative, right? If a mentee reaches out to you and says, I would love for you to be my mentor, that's a good first step because the mentee took the initiation. Okay, what is a mentor to you? What do you want to get out of this? What is your schedule? What is your goal? And what can you put into it? What can you invest? What are you bringing to the table? And then what kind of time and skills can you invest into it? Is my question whenever someone asks me to be their mentor. Because the initiation and the drive should come from the mentee, and I fill in where I have some experience or I have some knowledge that I can impart. Or if I see them going off a little bit in the wrong direction, I might guide them. But I'm not going to force them. I can tell them what I think, and then that person has to decide, yes, I'm going to move back to this direction. Oh, no, I'm going to continue along this path. That's still up to them, right? So
just a couple quick, we have some folks tuning in on the various channels. So we're appearing on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn simultaneously. So Ankit is appreciating what he's hearing over there on YouTube. And I think Meredith is a mutual friend who is a big supporter of the work that we're doing here. Meredith and I had a really interesting conversation on a Monday about improvisation. She's a genius expert at weaving that into the work that you're doing. What I love about that idea of mentorship is that level of investment and accountability that you're
yes.
to. And so it's just, for me, that's an even more powerful framing. And just to give people some, pragmatic advice, practical advice, for like if they're listening to this conversation and they're thinking, oh, I am actually a person that would probably benefit from seeking a mentor, or I am someone that feels that I might be um, able to invest some time in being a mentor. What would you say are pragmatic kind of first steps? How does someone that seeks a mentor go about finding a mentor, the best mentor, or at least an all right mentor for right now? And if someone on the other side has time and a willingness to invest, how can they present themselves to more of the right people that might be looking for the kind of mentorship they can provide?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good question. I think the best place to start is your place of employment or your school or university or college, because that's where you already have relationships, right? And that's why I said in the beginning, relationships are the most important first step, that relationship building. So reaching out to if you're at a company, a corporate environment, reaching out to your ERGs, your employee resource groups, is one good way to look for a mentor. If you're at a college or university or school, they have guidance for that, and probably multiple branches where you can look. The other, we talked about formal versus informal, right? So the other place you can look is, within your own context. Sometimes you have mentors that you've been talking to and interacting with on a daily basis, and you don't even know it. But if you find someone who seems to have that knowledge or experience or wisdom that you wish you had, approach that person, just like someone approached you, Scott, and asked you, I would like you to be my mentor. That's another good way. If you looked in my LinkedIn profile, you'll see a lot of posts after my mentorship room. After every mentorship room, I post all the learning that we gather together. And I've structured the room very similar to how I consider mentorship to be, a two-way street. And it's a gathering of people sharing their knowledge. It's not one person. It's not one direction. It's back and forth. And so all of the learning that we've gathered and accumulated in that room is posted on LinkedIn in my profile. We have a lot of links there to mentorship opportunities. I am a mentor for National Junior Humanities and Science Symposium. So that is run by the U.S. military for gifted high school students who are interested in STEM careers and looking for people in STEM who are already in STEM careers, professionals, to kind of mentor them through that symposium process. And I didn't search for this. Someone reached out to me and said, you look like you would be someone good for this role. Would you be interested? Sometimes once you start and you reach out for a role, if you're interested in being a mentor, you have some time to give. Once you reach out for one or volunteer your time for one, it kind of makes connections to other avenues and becomes like a spider web of opportunity. So I would say just get started.
There you go. Some good advice from Andrea that for small business owners, starting with a small business development center. That's a great suggestion. The thing that I guess I would say is start where you are with what you have and who you already know. So,
Mhm.
I think oftentimes when people are thinking about like, oh, I'm ready to level up in whatever enterprise or endeavor you want to level up in, and I have to find the right mentor, the right coach, the right teacher, and it prevents us from getting started by just going ahead and getting going with an all right mentor
Exactly.
right now. So, these relationships are not marriages. Like one of the things I love to say to my clients is, I'm thrilled to be your coach for now. I certainly don't
Mhm.
want to be your coach forever, because that would be evidence that I'm not very good at my job. My job is to get
Right.
as far as I can help you get. and then it will be time for you to find your next coach. And I developed that mostly during my years as a guitar teacher, where I would see over time, like students just continuing to take lessons because we had like this personal relationship, but it wasn't really moving the needle in terms of their performing anymore, or
Yeah.
their technique or training. And I would say, oh, I think we're done. Like, I think I've taken you as far as I can take you, and I can refer you to this person, that person, or maybe it's just time for you to take what you know and have fun, or maybe even try your hand at teaching what you've already been taught. So I just
Yeah.
think there's value in that. The other is to not um, to some of my greatest mentors are people I have never met, people that are historical figures whose journal, diary,
Yeah.
biography I've read, or people that I really only know through their content that they
Yep.
put out in digitally, but I am able to use that and leverage that as if they were a mentor. I just call them my virtual mentors. And another way to think about that is, like, who are your heroes? You can learn a
Yes.
lot from just paying attention to how the people that you seek to be more like engaged with their challenges and their path in terms of making progress in their endeavor.
Absolutely. I think I did something very similar with someone in the clinical research space. When I was certified in 2011, I started following this person, and she was a leader in our local chapter. So I used to follow her work and her recommendations, and she put out some podcasts and some recordings from her seminars, and I would watch. And then I met her in between, but very briefly. And then in 2019, I finally had a chance to work with her. And I told her, by the way, you've been my mentor since 2011, unbeknownst to you, because I've been following your work and your recommendations and your advice. And thank you so much, for everything that you share. And after that, of course, our relationship changed a bit. The dynamic deepened probably a little bit. But yeah, I can absolutely see how that's valuable. And some of us do it without even realizing it.
Well, as our half hour together is coming to an end, Sophie, if someone has been listening to this conversation and recognizes that in their desire to fly a little bit higher and the difference only they could make, they could actually use, some sort of mentor, coach, teacher, some relationship that will help them step into their potential and deliver on their promise. What would your advice be in terms of, like, what's the next step that they can take after this conversation ends?
I would encourage you to come join my mentorship room in Clubhouse, because we have people from multiple different professions in there. And it's been amazing how people meet each other just by listening. The great thing about Clubhouse, that I like to say, it's the great leveler, because you can only hear, you can't see each other. So we can't judge each other based on what we're wearing or what we look like, or we can only judge each other based on the passion in our voices, what we're, concerned with, what we're talking about. And you can tell if someone is an expert in their field by the way they're speaking, right? So I find it so helpful. And from there, people have branched off and found mentors, even within their own institution where they work, they hadn't thought of before. So I would start with, where you are, come to the mentorship room, look at my posts in LinkedIn. And there are also multiple government websites,
Mhm.
depending on what field you're in, to look for a mentor, intern, mentorship. that was great. So yeah, I would start with what you know, start with where you're connected, but really know what you want. Know who you are, know what you want, where you're going, and how you think you're going to get there. And that pathway might change, but have a plan first before you approach a mentor, because the initiation should start from the mentee.
Love it. That's really, really good advice. I love this conversation, Sophie, and really appreciate the work that you're doing in this space. I highly recommend joining Sophie's clubhouse room. I understand that there's going to be someone that looks a lot like me in conversation.
December 2nd. Make sure you join on December 2nd. We are having a whole star lineup on December 2nd, including you, Scott. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be really fun. I love these kind of conversations. I love the kind of this, I call this empathetic antagonism. These conversations that get under your skin in a good way, that make you scratch an itch that maybe you hadn't realized you needed to scratch. If you have an inkling that you're capable of being and doing more and better with more of the right people, I would say that that is true. And mentorship is one of many levers that you can start to tug on that will help you ratchet your forward progress. So really appreciate this conversation, Mary Sophie. Check her out on LinkedIn. It's always great to see you as well at Creative on Purpose. And yeah, thanks so much. We'll see you very, very soon.
Thank you.